Today on the Big 6 in 60, the Knicks make a huge comeback to beat the Cavs.
New York Knicks, who won Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals.
Jason Kidd out as head coach of the Mavs.
Jason Kidd had 4 years left on his contract. There's all kinds of implications with that.
And Rashee Rice violates his probation.
Rice, currently in jail.
This is the Big 6 in 60, the 6 biggest national sports stories from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now. Thank you for making the Big 6 in 60 your first listen of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins.
The Knicks stole Game 1 in overtime after erasing a 22-point fourth-quarter hole behind Jalen Brunson. Gavin Shaw and XJ with Locked On Knicks go inside the win.
New York Knicks, who won Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals and avenged Tom Thibodeau. Avenged! Can you avenge Josh Hart giving out this game? And avenge everyone who was on the floor last year. Avenge campaign. The Tyrese Halliburton Victim Compensation Fund paid out to the New York Knicks. A miracle. Game 1 win. Down by 22 points. With 8 minutes to go. They closed the game on a 44-12 run. I'm Gavin Shaw. He's XJ. This is Locked On Knicks. We're going to take you through all of it, including the heroics from Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, and Landry Shamet. But there's only one place to start, buddy. The parallels from a year ago are just indescribable, to the point where I was watching this game from behind. And for the second year in a row, my fiance, last year she gave the result away. This year she kind of tacitly gave the result away, but didn't totally. But I was still able to enjoy it. We had the Sam Merrill 3 that equated to the Halliburton 3 that instead of going down, went halfway down and out. We got our version of the bounce with Landry Shamet on a right wing 3. We had this team that broke apart down the stretch in last year's Game 1, winning this time. And that same feeling, and this might come back to bite me if the Knicks lose the series, but that same feeling that one game might have been the Eastern Conference Finals.
Gavin, we need a way to bottle this feeling and then just have it and then just drink it anytime we want and just like have it just completely. We have for our audience who love you guys for being here. As always, you guys are my people, and we just taking you behind the curtain. We do like a short after every game for Locked On Knicks. We send it off to the Locked On Network. They put it somewhere. I don't even know where it goes, to be honest with you. Gavin knows more about this stuff than I do. So I had to do this short right after the game, and my blood was just boiling. I was so intense, and I had to record it 3 times. I said the wrong score. Gavin uploaded it to the main channel so you can watch it if you want. My hair was all in disarray. I don't even know what was happening. I told you, I said, I don't even know where I am right now. This is the most emotional I've ever been after a game. I just did not think they had a chance to win that game. I thought it was over. I thought they were going down 0-1, losing at home, Game 1 in MSG, and this was going to be a 7-game series. And not to say that it still can't be. Of course it still can be. And Atkinson showed that he has tons of answers for what the Knicks have to offer. But, man, what an experience. And, Gavin, I speak for everyone when I say that scream to start the show. That is all of us. That is all of us. That's all of us. Tonight, tomorrow, and up until Game 2, that's how I'm going to be feeling, and I'm not going to let anybody blemish it.
It is very likely going to result in the 5th noise complaint of the night for my neighbors. More trauma to my 1.5-year-old dachshund, but you know what? That is okay on a night like this. I don't really know where to start, man. I just I was so depressed halfway through the fourth quarter, and we had all this hype, all this motion for this team, like 10 days off to just marinate in it. A Cleveland team that, yes, should have come in battle tested. Yes, should have come in sharper, but should have been exhausted, should not have had this in their bag. And it didn't, like in the first half, Cleveland missed a million open threes. It didn't feel like outside of like one stretch with the bench unit, the Knicks played very well. And it like the most depressing part about it was the thing you and I have been complaining about for 2 years, that like I think we've been tiptoeing around and haven't really known how to handle it, because we thought it'd be a problem in round one, and the Hawks didn't expose it. We thought it'd be a problem in round two, and it wasn't exposed by the Sixers. And you got to this point where you were like, am I a moron for continuing to talk about it? And it turns out we weren't, because the starting lineup was just a disaster. And I was just sad sitting in that, being like, I was such an idiot for buying into this. I was such an idiot for buying into Mike Brown. Cat had a lot of dumb plays. We had a lot of bad Jalen ISO ball. OG looked like it looked like game 7 against the Pacers 2 years ago, where he was playing on like seemingly a torn hamstring, and he was going to need surgery. And the Knicks medical department and PR team had done it again and lied to us. And like, he didn't look like himself. And Josh Hart looked like, I've unfortunately had this description before, some nice drives mixed in, some nice defense mixed in. He looked like he was peeing down his leg every time he was left open for three. And I will let you take it away from here, because they go from that to putting in Landry Shamet. He shuts down Donovan Mitchell, switches onto Evan Mobley, takes a charge, hits a three on the other end, and we are off. That lineup proceeds to score. Like, after that lineup did not play together until like the 7.5 minute mark of the fourth quarter, they closed the game 44-8 with that lineup. Just a lot of like incredible Jalen Brunson moments and along the way from there.
You hit on all the major notes. I mean, I do want to just say about Landry Shamet, even earlier in the game, when he was in the game, just the way that he played defense against Donovan Mitchell. Yeah. Donovan Mitchell looking at, I got food in front of me, going into his dribble bag and trying to cross him up and going into this hyper, like, and one dribble back, and then Landry Shamet just in front of him, just standing there. Jose Alvarado comes in and grabs the ball away, and they steal it and go the other way. And it was just like, man, Landry Shamet's locked in. And I obviously would feel like the Knicks could have done the same thing with Deuce McBride in there for Landry Shamet. But to be honest, Landry Shamet was incredible in this game, just all around on both ends, hitting clutch shots, obviously, providing Jalen Brunson with the space to do what he does in this type of situation. Say, put James Harden in front of me, and I'm going to leave James Harden behind me over and over and over and over again. And Landry Shamet's presence absolutely allowed that to happen. I don't want to... The ghost coverage thing, obviously, I think that is going to be a story. I don't know how widely it's going to be talked about or emphasized. Obviously, we're going to do it here because it's something we talked about forever at this point. But I do want to say, like, I just didn't understand both Atlanta and Philadelphia not really leveraging it. It just never made sense to me. I think I called Quinn Snyder out for having one of the worst performances from a coach like ever. I might have said that on Hot Hand Theory, in my opinion, just based on never having tried it. Unbelievable. And I think that unfortunately Josh Hart just didn't get preparation for it. He got this traditional coverage all this time, and then when it came and we see it, he wasn't able to make shots. I do want to say, before we, talk about it in depth, as far as like the negatives, Josh Hart played really well outside of just not being covered. He was pushing the ball in transition. He was very smart. And it's like, let me get down the court before a rim protector gets down there to just muck things up. He pushed it ahead of Evan Mobley a couple times, got to the rim, got some layups. He was really good defensively, pressing up on Donovan Mitchell. I thought he was really good overall. It's just, if you don't have any space, man, you can't really live that way. You can't live with a guy just having a foot in the paint at all times, whether that's Mobley or Jarrett Allen. And the Knicks had just gotten used to the luxury of having no paint protector, no rim protector there for 2 series, and that all just went away until Landry Shamet stepped foot on the court.
And from there, I mean, Jalen Brunson takes them home. He accounts, I mean, it was before the 44-8, it was an 18-1 run. It was the Shamet 3. And from there, Jalen was involved in 15 straight points, right? Scores 13 of them, like had the one dump off to Cat. And it's the greatest feeling a superstar can give you. And I'm sure it's the feeling Spurs fans had with Victor Wembanyama last night. It was the feeling I had watching this game. And man, like, if you are a fan of basketball, like, how can the last 2 nights not make you believe in? I mean, if you're a Thunder fan and a Cavs fan, the answer is it's easy. But I was going to say, how can the last 2 nights not make you believe in the basketball gods? How can it not make you just incredibly sappy about sports? Because what Brunson does at 15 inches shorter than Victor Wembanyama, 14 inches shorter than Victor Wembanyama, even on a terrible night, you always know the possibility is there that he can make the miraculous happen. And it is this like deep set feeling of like, honestly, what maybe this is calling out some parental issues for people, including myself, but it is the feeling, XJ, that you are in safe hands, which I think everyone's inner, if I'm going to get therapeutic, everyone's inner child wants to some extent, right? Like every time Jalen got hardened on an island, like once he made the first two and showed you like, okay, like this isn't going to be like, and we've had terrible game ones from Jalen Brunson before he turns it around. Like this wasn't going to be that. Like he was going to turn it around. He was going to figure it out. Like, I think people, like, he makes it look so easy. You probably, and before that, he was like, we can go back to the third quarter later. He had a terrible third quarter, like defensively hunted again and again. Like the Knicks blitzing with him just completely backfired. When they didn't blitz, Donovan Mitchell flambéed him. Like he was the most destructive player on the court in a bad way for the Knicks in the fourth quarter. For him to flip that to like some of the bankers that he made, just incredibly
impossible, difficult
shots. And because his dad was borderline abusive, like he chose the exact right angle to put it off. Like he is a genius. Like I cannot emphasize enough. You are watching genius. In 200 years, this is going to be the way people talk about Van Gogh. Jalen Brunson will be discussed. Like he is a virtuoso basketball talent. He is the shortest, least conventionally athletic guy on the court, and he is flambeing James Harden, which doesn't sound that impressive, but he did it over and over again, and then caps it off with that between the legs, behind the back, 25-footer, 94-89 at that point, and then shows the maturity, right? When he starts getting blitzed, hits Mikal Bridges, 99-96, hits Landry Shamet to tie it out of the blitz, gets one last runner. And then we can talk about overtime after the break, but he did what you needed to do in overtime. And you just had a feeling once you got it to OT, Cleveland was broken. They were out of gas and the Knicks were going to win.
The NBA playoffs are here, and every possession matters. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right, turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. I like using FanDuel during the playoffs because everything I need is right there in one place. You can check stats, trends, and matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. It's a really easy app to navigate, and it makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game.
Welcome back to the Big Six in 60. The Cavs let a 22-point Game 1 lead slip away, turning a strong night into a brutal overtime loss. Danny Cunningham with Locked On Cavs sorts through the collapse.
We have to spend a lot of time talking about what I can only term as an epic collapse, a complete and total choke job, a failure unlike anything that I've ever seen, where the Cavs had a 22-point lead over the New York Knicks with less than 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. In Madison Square Garden, they were completely and absolutely dominating that game against New York, despite the fact that they were on short rest, that they played a Game 7 48 hours before this game started in Detroit, that it's been a whirlwind of a couple of weeks, and then they looked like the team that we all expected them to be, that we all know they could be. They did that for roughly the first 40 minutes of this game, 40 minutes and change, and then they absolutely 100% just collapsed in embarrassing and despicable fashion. Like, there's no nice way to talk about this. This was, to me, a pathetic performance by the Cavs down the stretch of this game. There is no way, shape, or form that they should have lost this game. They did just about everything wrong for the final 7 minutes and change. I think there are a lot of people to blame. We're going to talk about who's to blame. But, like, for me, yeah, the players have to play better. But I think, like, first and foremost, this is on Kenny Atkinson. Because one of the benefits that you have as a coach when you build a lead the way the Cavs built the lead, where they're up by, again, 22 points, less than midway through the fourth quarter, one of the benefits that you have is you tend to have some timeouts in your back pocket. And I don't know if everyone understands the timeout rules in basketball, right? Like you're allowed to go into the fourth quarter with 4 timeouts, which Kenny Atkinson did. I do not believe Mike Brown from the New York Knicks went in the fourth quarter with 4 timeouts because he had to call timeouts to stop Cavs runs throughout this game, which is something Kenny Atkinson really didn't do until it was too late in the fourth quarter in this game, where the Knicks cut that 22-point lead to 17, and the Knicks ended up calling a timeout because it was their timeout to call the mandatory. It's like, okay, that's not that big of a deal. It's 17-point lead with 5 minutes and change or 6 minutes and change, whatever it was at that point. Not that big of a deal. But then the Knicks keep going, and that 13-1 run becomes an 18-1 run, and that 18-1 run just continues to snowball and snowball and snowball. And ultimately, of those 4 timeouts that the Cavs had, Kenny Atkinson called one of them in the fourth quarter. And the Knicks closed this game out closed regulation out, on a 30-4 run. They went on a 30-4 run to close this game out, or whatever it was, to close the game out. Like, it was unlike anything that I've ever seen, basically unlike anything that has ever happened in the postseason. It was completely and utterly ridiculous, and like, this is a loss that I look at, and it's one loss, and we'll talk about reasons to be optimistic in the third and final segment, because like, this game was not without good things for the Cavs. Obviously, you don't build a 22-point lead by accident. But this is a loss that I look at, and I wonder, can the Cavs respond to this? Can they respond from this? Because there are, like I said, there are bad losses. There are losses, which, like, we've seen the Cavs have losses in the postseason, right? You go back to the first round series against the Raptors. Let's go back to Game 3, where Jamison Battle goes off in the fourth quarter. The Cavs have a 2-0 lead going into that game. Opportunity for them to step on the neck of the Toronto Raptors. They didn't do it. That's a loss. I didn't think that was a bad loss. Like, you know, the home team, when they're down 2-0, kind of supposed to win Game 3. I didn't think that was a bad loss for the Cavs. And then Game 4 in Toronto, where they have an 8-point lead, sounds familiar, with 4.5 minutes left in regulation in that game, and they find a way to lose that game. That was also a bad loss. That wasn't as bad as this. And then you could even make the case that although it was different, and I don't think that the Cavs necessarily screwed things up as much in this one as much as they got unlucky, but Game 6 against the Raptors, where RJ Barrett hits that incredible shot that bounces all the way up above the shot clock and drops in to win the game for the Raptors in overtime. Like, that was a bad loss. I think that was a little bit less on the Cavs and more on a bit of bad luck, and maybe that they didn't play a great 48-minute game and they did enough to get themselves back into it near the end of regulation. But like, all of those losses I thought were tough for the Cavs to respond to, and they did it. But I don't think any of those losses compare to what this was, because this was the biggest stage this team's been on, and they looked great. Like, they looked awesome through 3 quarters. I thought Kenny Atkinson was doing a great job. I thought Donovan Mitchell looked awesome. James Harden wasn't having a great shooting game, but I thought his impact was really strong. I thought Evan Mobley was excellent defensively in this game, and he was, and that's a bright spot to take away from it. But the Cavs did everything right through 3.5 quarters, and then they just thought, okay, that's it, we won. Like, the game's over. And that's inexcusable. And to me, that's on coaching, because the Cavs failed to make proper adjustments in the fourth quarter. They did not get back to what was working on either end of the floor, because this was not just, they had a hot shooting night, which is why they had 32 points in the second quarter, 35 points in the third quarter. It's not what it was. The Cavs' offensive decision-making, I thought, was impeccable in the middle quarters of this game. I thought they got off to a slow start, at least once Donovan Mitchell went to the bench in the first quarter. But, like, they did a lot of really, really good things. And they never went back to it in the fourth quarter. They tried to, for lack of a better term, and I don't love necessarily making these cross-sport references, but for lack of a better term, the Cavs basically played prevent offense for the final 6 minutes, while the Knicks finally, who got off to a terrible start from beyond the arc, I think they were 2 of 19 at one point on threes, they finally started to make some threes, and sure, they got some lucky bounces, like the one three-pointer that bounced off the rim twice, hit the backboard, ends up falling in. Like, that's a bit of a bad break. Mikal Bridges hits one at the end of a shot clock when he's heavily contested by Evan Mobley. Yeah, that's a bad break. Like, the Cavs did get a little unlucky here, but there's no reason they should have been in that spot. There's no reason why they should have just collapsed down the stretch, why they should have forgotten how to play offense down the stretch, because the Knicks at a certain point were always going to wake up and make shots. They're too talented offensively. they were always going to find ways to make shots, whether that's Jalen Brunson, which we'll talk about why he was able to get going in the fourth quarter, because that's, part of it is Jalen Brunson's an awesome player, but part of that's on Cleveland's defensive strategy. Was not good enough in that moment. Like, those things happen, but with a 22-point lead, it shouldn't matter. Like, this, at worst, should have been a 10-point win for the Cavs. But Kenny Atkinson didn't make adjustments. And yes, it's on the players too. James Harden needs to be much better than he was. Donovan Mitchell needed to be better down the stretch of this game. I'm curious if he's battling through something, because he was kind of non-existent in overtime. And, like, I also do wonder, not that this is an excuse for this team, but I do wonder if they ran out of gas. Like, I think that is a very real possibility, and they're not going to admit it, but I do think that probably played a little bit into this. But that kind of makes this stings a little bit more, I think, if you're the Cavs.
The Mavs and Jason Kidd are parting ways after 5 seasons, opening another reset in Dallas. Nick Angstadt and Isaac Harris with Locked On Mavericks lay out what comes next for the Mavs.
Breaking news for the Dallas Mavericks. Jason Kidd and the Mavericks part ways, a mutual parting ways. Tells me a few things about Mavs ownership, tells me things about Masai Ujiri, tells me things about Jason Kidd, and all kinds of things. Isaac, the first thing it tells me is this. Masai Ujiri is going to get his guy. This was something we had speculated about a bunch. We'll talk about the things we'd speculated about with Jason Kidd and all that, but Masai is going to get his guy. When a new GM comes in, there's, I think we heard a stat recently that like 50% of new GMs will either keep the coach that was there already or fired the coach that was there already, right? And we were wondering what is going to happen with Jason Kidd. Was Masai going to come in and say, I got to get my guy, or hey, I'll let this Jason Kidd thing play out? Jason Kidd had 4 years left on his contract. There's all kinds of implications with that. But Masai is going to come in, bring his own coach in. The whole leadership structure of the Mavericks has completely changed and will completely change over the course of like a calendar year.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. If you've been listening the past few days, we were in Chicago for the lottery, and the thing we put over and over again, I even dropped these like journal notes every night in our Locked On Mavs text line. And each one of those, I was looking back at them, I had, the future of Jason Kidd was a conversation. The future of Jason Kidd was uncertainty, was a conversation. It was just one of those Mavs-centric conversations that happened all throughout the week in Chicago. And I think, it obviously started Masai, his press conference, and he was not committal to Jason Kidd as a head coach moving forward, and even doubled down on it when I think Mac Ingles said, from the Telegram in Fort Worth, was like,
I have this right.
I just want to make sure I understand this right, and he didn't either. Now, he had kept Dwayne Casey in the past, he had kept George Karl in the past, so it wasn't going to be out of the ordinary if he did keep Jason Kidd. But
why did he bring that up if he was just gonna get rid of him and do it later?
Well, yeah, I think Mike Schmitz was hired, pretty fast, right? And I think it's safe to say that was, kind of in the works a little bit. So I would be shocked, if we don't have, if there's not a plan already in place.
Right, yeah. We hear tomorrow or the next day, hey, this guy's coming in.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that fast, but it's I'm not sitting there expecting hey, the 1st of August is when they're hiring a head coach. I don't think you do a move like this unless you have a plan. But I also think it was something from both sides. We speculated from the very beginning. Speculation, because we were just getting to know a little bit of Masai. Those two personalities, it was just I don't know. Jason Kidd tried for that job. He wanted that job. He made things really awkward in that front office with a lot of people involved. So the moment that he doesn't get that job and someone else gets it, and then even on top of that, someone else gets it, and then they hire somebody who's never been a GM before at all, even above him, you think Jason Kidd was okay with reporting to Mike Schmitz? I don't think so.
I said that to multiple people at the combine. Listen, Mike Schmitz is Jason Kidd's boss now, right? It just seems like a weird juxtaposition of things. And the power balance, the Game of Thrones of it all was definitely going to play a factor. Kidd wanted the throne of the team president or GM or whichever title they were going to give him that was the highest, and didn't happen. And so then what happens? What decision needs to be made now? And do you find the mutually parting ways part of this interesting, that it was a decision? Because the other part is we've known that Jason Kidd has also wanted to be in the front office. And there was the Knicks conversation last year that we had a lot about the Knicks being interested in Jason Kidd as the head coach.
Mutual interest there.
Mutual interest. And there's been rumblings of that. And so it's kind of like, all right, well, if you guys don't really want me, I don't really want you. And it's just like, all right, we're done.
Listen, Jason Kidd got his money, like for all the flirting that happened and the batting of eyes at each other between the Knicks and Jason Kidd last summer. The Knicks helped get a lot of coaches re-upped on new contracts, right?
It's like the Mavs with free agents, right? The Mavs with free agents for years would always get them more money.
But there's definitely interest there. I mean, Jason Kidd, it's been reported that he wants a front office job, even if it's Dallas, if it's not. The mutually parting ways is funny. I mean, I think that's the most respectful way to say he's fired.
They also did that with Carlisle, a different regime, but they also did that with Carlisle.
Yeah, I mean, at least Carlisle has a ring under his belt. But like Jason Kidd, I mean, I don't think he was walking in the office saying, yeah, I mean, I'm willing to walk away from 4 years. All right. So, willing to give up 4 years of money, right. $40 million roughly. Like, I don't think he's walking away from 40 mil just like that. So I think you get your money if you get fired. So there you go. And on the bigger scale of things, this was another person connected to Luka Doncic. Like, this was he was. I mean, as much as you want to. People want to say like, hey, Jason Kidd wasn't involved, blah, blah, blah. Jason Kidd played a role in Luka Doncic being gone. We've talked about this over and over again. Did he know at the exact 11th hour that Nico was calling it in and everything? No, he could say that. He could say like, I just found out that night. But did Jason Kidd help lay the groundwork for Luka Doncic trade to eventually happen? I think so. And I don't think so. It did. It played into it. So I think it's pretty telling too, from an observing eye. Jason Kidd was never embraced by Luka anytime Luka came to town. Luka knows the role that Jason Kidd played in that. So Nico's gone. Jason Kidd's gone. We don't know how the rest of the front office and then it's hard to know like who was involved in all of that if you are part of that camp of like, I got to get everybody, all that. But Nico Harrison, Jason Kidd, they were involved in that, and now they're both gone.
And Kidd was directly connected with Nico. They came in as a package deal, right? Cuban brought them in. They had introductory press conference together, and so more so somebody that is connected to Nico in that decision.
I wouldn't say that they were fully connected by the end. I think I've said
one of them got fired and one of them got an extension.
I think we've said on the show before. I mean, I think if Nico was still at the helm with all the decision-making powers and not Dumont, I think Kidd's probably coaching the Knicks right now. But Kidd staying on board allowed the Mavericks to have some type of stability and continuity in the midst of all the stuff that happened. And now this shows you that Masai's given the same type of free reign that Nico did, except Masai has the record to back it up.
Welcome back to the Big 6 in 60. Rashee Rice is set to miss Chiefs off-season work after a 30-day jail sentence for violating probation. Ryan Tracy, Chris Clark, and Matt Derrick with Locked On Chiefs break down the situation.
Rice, currently in jail, not going to be there for OTAs. No one to blame but himself. I'm going to put that out right out front. What we found out today is that he has been rescinded for violating his probation as part of a previous legal agreement. Tested positive for THC. We all know where that comes from. I can't say that part is shocking, but the fact that Rashee Rice has put himself in a position to miss what I think was a critical phase of his reacclimation to this team puts the team in a bad spot too. But for Rashee Rice, it could spell the beginning of the end.
It seems like it's the beginning of the end for Rashee every time something like this happens. And Ryan and I, we're going to be, people are going to think that we're copying each other's work. We did this work independently. I've already scheduled the title for the live Q&A on Tuesday night, 7:00. Always be sure to check it out. Unless you're listening to other Locked On RGR products, which we're all on at the same time.
Appreciate you.
But I titled it, "Oops, Rashee Rice did it again."
So
we're all trolling in the same. We're all trolling in the same areas here. No, I mean, it's been the gallows humor of the Chiefs offseason that, hey, what's Rashee Rice going to do next, and what's going to keep him off the field or do anything. And this is not going to keep him off the field this season. I don't think there's any significant repercussions that are come from this, but it's a repercussion for now because he's not going to be out there for OTAs, it looks like.
Are we sure it's not going to keep him off the field? Because could this
No,
be
that's why we're
construed
talking about
as-
it in the third segment, fellas.
Okay, well, my bad. I'm just saying, like, quite literally, that's my question with all of this is, could it keep him off the field because of personal conduct?
Well, now you have to listen until the end to find out. But and I'm even saying apparently for OTAs, because again, one of my favorite Twitter follows, Andrew Brandt, always says there will be lawyers. And they're probably trying to find some way to get Rashee out for OTAs. There may be an effort there. So you never know what's going to happen. But, there is at least, I don't know if it's a concern for anyone because, when it was handed down, Rashee Rice was given the option of doing these 30 days that he was sentenced to at any point during his 5 years of probation. Interesting, though, that that he's been sentenced to 30 days to fill that 30 days now. He no longer has that option. But this also tells us that he hadn't filled any of those 30 days as of yet. So, hey, it's another piece to the Rashee Rice puzzle. And, like Chris says, I mean, both of you say, I mean, the question is this the beginning of the end? I mean, it's just another piece of the puzzle.
It's another step in a direction that you don't want to go, right?
I just can't understand. Like, I don't remember who said it, but somebody said that this could cost him 9 figures. I'm not so sure it's not going to cost him 10 figures. Not the 7 figures is what they said. I meant 8. I'm not so sure it's going to cost him. It might cost him 8 figures because I don't know how he's going to get a deal after this. I can't see it happening in Kansas City, no matter how much talent he has. And we'll talk about the season impact and how all that's going to play out later. But the long-term scenario is I don't know if he's going to be able to stay in the league at this point. Out for OTAs, out for minicamp. How do you build around how do you build your offense without the guy that you thought was probably going to be your number one wide receiver? And what does it say about a guy that has had all these issues and the Chiefs didn't make any adjustments and try to go and bring in somebody else? And now you're kind of stuck in a situation where you can't bring anybody else in.
Yeah, the devil's advocate part of it is that, hey, what is he going to miss? Well, he's going to miss 9 practices with Justin Fields, Chris Oladokun, maybe somebody else. I mean, who knows who's going to get the reps with the ones and everything. And, you don't even know necessarily. I was asked earlier, what kind of punishment can the Chiefs do? I mean, about the only thing that the Chiefs have the power to maybe do is, make him earn his first team spot back, make him work from the third team and make him earn that back. But remember, he's not going to be working with Mahomes. So there's not going to be that going on during OTAs. Is it that big of a loss? Yes, he's going to miss going through installs. He's going to miss, the on-field instruction, the classroom instruction, all of that. All of that would be useful. He is going to be starting behind the 8 ball again. Now, he had all of that last year and then had to sit for the first half of the season, the first 6 games. And it took him a while to work back from that. So, he's going to be going into training camp with not really any football work during the offseason. At this point, they've been in, phase 1 and phase 2, which is not, teamwork. That most have been doing in phase 2 has been on the field instructions. It's also voluntary. I don't know with the 100% certainty that Rashee Rice has been there for all of phase 1 and phase 2. The Chiefs are always very tight-lipped about who's there and not there. So we don't know that he's even been there for that portion. But there's going to be some time missed, and it's going to make some for catch-up time when he does get to training camp.
I don't think there's any way to avoid that. It's unfortunate because I felt like on the return, I don't think it was as smooth a transition as maybe we would have liked. I think you have some things that if you are going to be that guy, if you are trying to get back to where your potential was, falling asleep at the wheel, and I don't think that he went out of his purposeful way to do this, but you have to understand that you are under scrutiny when you're on probation. So it's just another mistake that compounds an earlier mistake that now puts you out again, which hurts you as the player, I think maybe more than it does the team, although I'm interested to see what you guys think of that. So when we get back, what does it mean right now for Rashee, for the team, for everybody else in the room. There are implications up and down. We're just talking short term first, and then we'll get to the season long here. But I think right now, Matt, the guy that got hurt the most is probably Rashee Rice. I kind of laid it out there, and I want to ask you in the short term, maybe it's not all the on-field things as you were saying, but I think two things that are a factor in getting what I think I had hoped, and I'm pretty sure she had hoped, that could get him back to his path to success in this league. And that is you have a brand new position coach that you don't know enough about. You're going to have to learn, work with, and take advice from this man who you've now set back in his path in trying to get the wide receiver room ready. And I think maybe even more importantly, if you had been able as Rashee Rice to show this season that you are the leader of that room, that could go a long way in redeeming you as well. And I think that part is built in OTAs, whether it's necessarily on the field and the footwork and everything else. It's being with your teammates. It's being in the room, being the guy that they look to as the WR1. And I think that's the biggest thing that hurts Rashee Rice in this.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, it's definitely going to be some of that introduction and on the field work. Now, I mean, again, granted, I mean, Chad O'Shea and Rashee Rice, assuming that Rice has been around for some of off-season workouts and phase 1 or phase 2, has gotten to at least meet him and know him a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be valuable time missed onto the field that you're going to be going into. And this is honestly, I think, a little bit of the, what the Chiefs were hoping to do when they brought in Chad O'Shea and bringing back Eric Bieniemy, is bringing back some of the on-the-field discipline and accountability that they felt like they had been missing over the last few years. Now, this is a off-the-field accountability issue, but that's something that's been important to the Chiefs as well. And you mentioned it from a what does it mean for Rashee Rice standpoint. I mean, let's face it, there is the only way that there is going to be a list of any kind of teams lining up to sign Rashee Rice next year and making the Chiefs even amongst them is if he goes out and has a great year. I mean, he has got to go out and have like he's capable of. I mean, this is a guy that went through and has, when he has played consistently, had stretches where he can be a 70-yard receiver per game. I mean, that's going to get you 1,200 yards a season. I mean, that's an elite number one guy. But you can't do it if you can't stay on the field, and he's not going to do it if he doesn't pick up the offense and if he's not following instructions. Because I can tell you, I mean, that's one thing to get you in the Eric Bieniemy and Chad O'Shea doghouse is if they can't trust you on the field, they're not going to put you on the field.
And when you look at this, the short term, it affects Rashee Rice on the field, obviously, and we'll talk in the next segment whether or not it's going to cost him games this year, which could also affect whether or not he can get a contract. But the other part of this is the short term. It actually helps some of the other the younger guys on the roster that are going to be trying to fight for positions. Jalen Royals is going to get a better chance now to go out and do something in this offense than he was going to get before, just because of the fact that he's going to be out there in OTAs. He's going to be out there for mandatory minicamp. He's going to get more snaps. He's going to get more time in the offense. So it's going to help some of the younger guys. But the bigger problem is that you had a piece that you thought was easily going to be 1,000-yard receiver right now, and we will see if he's able to come through and be 1,000-yard receiver. I would say, though, Matt, 70 yards a game probably wouldn't be enough at this point for him to get a good contract. He needs to be closer to 100 yards a game and getting close to 1,500 yards because he's going to have to show that he's a superstar to get a chance with the team and get a decent contract.
Well, I mean, decent contract is probably out the window. I mean, I think he could go out and put up 1,600 yards, and he's still not going to get offered more than a 1-year prove-it deal. I mean, even if there are more years on that contract, there's going to be incentives, there's going to be clauses. I mean, it's going to be, no matter what he signs, it's going to be a 1-year deal and out for the team, no matter what. Yep. And he's, once again, I mean, it's an issue like this, no matter what kind of season he goes out and has, it's going to cost him money next year too. He, I think, is going to have to just accept the fact that that's probably the only deal he's going to get is a 1-year prove-it deal. Now, I still think that the Chiefs would be interested in signing him to a long-term deal, but again, they would want safeguards, and we're talking about at this point safeguards that were not even similar to the Tyreek Hill contract that he signed an extension that he signed in 2019. I mean, that was a pretty favorable deal for the club, especially because it let them walk any one of those 4 years of that contract. And to Tyreek's credit and the team's credit, I mean, they played through that contract. I mean, he made it to the next one and I think he's still on that contract when he got traded. But it's the thing is that with Rashee is that if the Chiefs were going to make a long-term commitment to him, they're going to want very similar, if not more punitive measures. I mean, they're going to want to be able to get out of the deal after every year. They're going to want to make sure that they're not committing any money to future years. There will be a shorter leash than there would have been on the Tyreek contract.
Welcome back to the Big Six in 60. Brendan Sorsby is asking the courts for 2026 eligibility while his NCAA gambling case plays out. Chris Level and Casey Cowan with Locked On Texas Tech take you through it.
We're taking a look at the big picture in the world of college football and where Texas Tech fits in. Is there a case to be made right now that we are the biggest victims in college football running today? A little bit atypical and unnatural as far as the position to be in. I don't subscribe to the victimhood approach in my personal life. I don't feel like you do either, Chris. But as I'm looking at this set of circumstances surrounding the Red Raiders and Brendan Sorsby, I'm thinking about the wise words of Nacho Libre. It sucks to be me right now. There are things lining up against Texas Tech that you and I have continued to kind of point out and reflect upon that leave Texas Tech in a very unique position among this array of characters, whether it's Brendan Sorsby or the NCAA or Indiana or Cincinnati. Texas Tech is in the position right now of de facto defending their student athlete, even though they are not engaged in the litigation. That's Sorsby versus the NCAA, as we've talked about already this week. But as I look at it from a Red Raiders standpoint, what they did or didn't know, then when they did know something and the timeliness of knowing that something, and what had already been invested by that time, it is hard for me to not feel like the Red Raiders are in a position of maybe not being victimized, but a victim of extreme misfortune. You just almost can't make it up, this set of circumstances.
I mean, officials have been after the Red Raiders for years. Randy Cristall, I remember you, man. I remember you. I remember you getting all angry and everything when things were going the Red Raiders' way or whatever. I mean, it was just there's a lot of dynamics there. The schedule makers. I mean, Brett Yormark even like putting us on a Friday at home. This whole thing. So this is all a big conspiracy, just aimed at Texas Tech. Yeah. So we play the victim card or the role well, I should say. This is just either misfortune, I think, is the term that you use. That's probably very accurately portrayed. Because you are, I've said this before, you just look at all the tentacles of said story here. And look, whoever turned this in, and we know it was you, Cincy. We know, bang, bang. We know. Whoever turned this in, they very clearly wanted Texas Tech to suffer and Brendan Sorsby to suffer. Okay. But Indiana, like with what went on, and then, the NCAA is also involved. They can't play the victim because they're just the shoddiest organization. The rules are applied, misapplied all over the place. Their organization is just a house of cards at this point, right? And here old Texas Tech is sitting over here going, our money's good. We'd like to use it on a good footballer, and let's do it with no baggage that they were aware of, none. And then lo and behold, after spring football is over, and you can't invest in anybody else, you can't go get anybody else, you can't we've been made aware of some allegations from the last couple of 3 years. And I've said this before too, but we're not even talking about Brendan Sorsby if Will Hammond doesn't get hurt, but Will Hammond did get hurt, and it was a significant injury, and so you wanted to really add to the position to where there was you're not taking a chance. Like, you already know the answer. Spoiler: he's good. Okay, so you already you had You had surveyed the landscape. You had chosen. And no, you didn't know it. People were like, how could they have not known that nobody knew. Nobody. And anybody suggesting otherwise is just like you have an agenda. Because there's a lot of opinions out there on this thing. There's a lot of clickbait going on. There's a lot of drawing people in and trying to misinform everybody. Nobody knew anything. And I'll just say this too. Nobody's opinion matters except for Judge Hayes's. Okay. Anyways, I digress. So, victim, man. I mean, like you stand to lose the most of anybody. And some would argue that Brendan Sorsby personally could stand to lose a lot, but he knowingly participated in said activity. You're over here off to the side, and you just don't, you just had no idea. So this whole thing could really suck. And then you're telling me if they do find that he's ineligible, but wait a second, he participated on multiple football teams and played in some of these games or was on an active roster of some of these games, and there's nothing going on there. Like there's no consequences suffered there. Like that's why I say Texas Tech could be the biggest victim of this whole deal, to which Cowan preaching it from the mountaintop, and he's willing to die on this hill, folks. We are the victim.
That's right. I cringe to even say the word out loud because some people craft an entire identity and personality around that word these days, and they're some of the most pathetic members of our society. So I just cringe to even consider the thought of being a victim in any way, shape, or form. I'm willing to pose the question, and you guys can let us know out there, but that's why I give myself an out in basically just describing it as several very unlucky rolls. Why I give myself an out in basically just describing it as several very unlucky rolls. And we know unlucky rolls, all right? That kind of comes with the game too. I don't necessarily bemoan some uniquely unlucky fortune or fate that's befallen the Red Raiders, but you just can't make this kind of stuff up. And if you're going to be a victim, someone has to have victimized you. And I'm kind of looking around thinking, all right, well, who was that? Well, when we talk about nobody knowing, we're excluding one person that definitely knew, and that was Brendan Sorsby. So if there was some –
and Cincinnati.
Possibly Cincinnati, although they owed us nothing as compared to the player. But if there was concealing of this information at that point in time, then there's one person to point to. But victim or not, incredibly unfortunate to be in the position, Chris, of having to go to bat, and you didn't have to, but of going to bat for someone who has taken so many PR flames and arrows, and justifiably so in many ways. They will continue to come. But competitively speaking, you are invested to a degree that you feel like you want to, as we've said over and over, run this ground ball out, while you have so far engaged in nothing that should actually require you to have any interest in what's going on in a courtroom with the NCAA. But here we are. Agree or disagree, lob them at us in the YouTube comments or fire us a text if you're in the Matador mob. Can we play the role accurately, justifiably, of the biggest victim in college football in May of 2026? I think it's possible. There's an argument to be made.
We've been playing this role for 30, 40 years. I mean, everybody's always out to get the Red Raiders.
That's
right.
right.
I mean, there's just no doubt.
And your favorite team out there, too. They're just all victims. Everybody. Everybody's team is hated by everyone.
but last thing I'll say is, all kidding aside, this is put you in a fairly large pickle, potentially, to which a lot of times it's your own fault. And anybody going, well, it is your own fault. You should have known. No, shut up. I'm not talking to you. You have an agenda, that person. But to no fault of your own, this just weird dynamic of things, and you could suffer the biggest consequence. And that sucks, man. That's not cool. And that's, call it unfair or whatever. It just, and for whoever turned them in, I mean, karma's undefeated, man. Karma's undefeated. So, you may think, well, I didn't do anything wrong. I just am the whistleblower. No, you're going to choke on that whistle at some point, and then every time you talk, we're going to hear these
We do live in the era of the hall monitor, though, so that person may be the next governor or whatever state they live in. I don't know, but
That's
enjoy
true.
it while you can. Hopefully, we're coming out of it.
Welcome back to the Big Six in 60. Florida added four-star receiver Elias Pearl to its 2027 class, keeping another in-state playmaker at home. Brandon Olson with Locked On Gators walks through the pickup.
The Florida Gators have added another commit to the class. This time it's four-star wide receiver Elias Pearl out of Port Charlotte, which we're going to talk a bunch about him. Most notably, that he is the player that when Davin Davidson committed to the Florida Gators, everybody went, "Hey, Davin, who are you recruiting to the Gators? Who's the target that you're looking for?" And every single time, very consistently, Davin went, "Well, Elias Pearl. I mean, that's who I'm looking for. It's Elias Pearl. He's the guy that I'm looking for." And so, love to see you actually, by the way, land the commitment to this point. But Elias Pearl, 5'11", 183 pounds, four-star receiver on Rivals, number 55 in the country, is in the 55th best player in the country, according to Rivals, 9th receiver in the country, 4th player in the state of Florida. On 24/7, he is a four-star wide receiver, 112th player in the country, 14th wide receiver in the country, 13th player in the state of Florida, and a four-star on ESPN, 178th nationally, 25th wide receiver in the country, 20th player in the state of Florida. And the Florida Gators are once again getting closer to that top recruiting class, which, by the way, I don't think they're ever going to get to. But I'm going to have fun as they challenge for it, or if they do get there, I don't think they're going to stay there, partially just because, well, I don't think that Florida's going to outbid some of those teams at the very top. And that's just something that we gotta take into account, right? But the Florida Gators adding Elias Pearl is big. And again, this is the player that Davin Davidson was talking about so much as wanting to pursue. And it's easy to see why Davin Davidson, if I were a quarterback, I'd go, you know what? Yeah, that's the kind of guy that I want on my team. Again, 5'11". He's got some verified times by Rivals verification. Again, I'm not entirely sure if those are like laser time for everything, but hand size 9.3 inches, broad jump 117.5 inches, 20-yard shuttle 4.3 seconds, which pretty dang solid if that's actually like a 4.3 flat. Vertical of 32.4, 40 of 4.5, and a wingspan of 77.8, which the wingspan does not shock me at all because he looks like he looks taller than I think he's 5'10", more so than 5'11", but like he looks like he's got really long arms. And so I think that when you look at that athletic profile, that's all those numbers are. All right, good quality player. Like all those numbers are quality athlete numbers at receiver. Even the 4.5 40. Like I know that there's a bunch of people that are like, oh, 4.5. Like I'm sorry. Let me backtrack for a second. There's a bunch of people who like to talk about things that they know nothing about that go, oh, 4.5. That's a gross 40. That's a bad 40. That's a slow 40. No, the hell it's not. Not even in the NFL is that a bad 40. It's not a good one, but it ain't a bad one. And, well, he's in high school, so that 40 is going to get better. But I think that, he's a good athlete overall, decent size. The thing that I've talked about before is that I like his route running ability. I like his technique. I have always been very open about how I feel about receivers and just high school players that have solid technique in high school. I think that's really important to have. And Elias Pearl has that at receiver. Also, Florida landed him over Florida. It was Florida, Ole Miss that were the main two. And I'm going to include Florida landing him over Florida State because I do know that there were quite a few Florida State fans that on social media and on like message boards and whatnot, that went, oh well, we've got his quarterback, the Port Charlotte quarterback, committed to Florida State, and so now we're going to get him. Relationships matter. It's not just who you played with, and Davin Davidson pretty clearly, pretty publicly had a very good relationship with Elias Pearl. Sometimes that might matter, especially when I'm going, well, do I want to play for Mike Norvell for a year before he gets fired? Or do I want to play for John Summerall for a bit with a quarterback that I know and trust, and that, well, frankly, I think is actually an SEC caliber quarterback or a Power 4 caliber quarterback. Elias Pearl is a Florida Gator, and when you cut on his film, well, first off, you're going to have a good bit of fun, right? Bunch of big plays in there. Again, I think he's a good athlete, not an amazing athlete, but a good one. I think for college, he's going to be a pretty damn good athlete, but that's not the most impressive part to me. And also, by the way, the like I've talked about, like I like technique. I like that he has a release package. It's the one of my favorite things about Anthony Speedy Jennings is having a release package. I like how Elias Pearl, I think it might genuinely be his first play on film where he runs that little like stutter and then gets to the outside and wins with acceleration. And like I like seeing stuff like that, where it doesn't just look like a receiver's coming out of his stance and just like upper body, while the lower body, I don't know how to describe it, while the upper body or while the lower body just like slows down a little bit. Like, there's actually technique to these things. It's not just like, oh, well, chop your feet and then do a little shimmy shake. Like, no, you got to actually run with actual technique there. And I think that Elias Pearl does that out of his release, an impressive release package. Also not my favorite thing about his game, because my favorite thing about his game is contact balance. I think contact balance is a massive plus at every position. Honestly, a necessity at just about every position that's going to need to carry the ball. You can't be someone that it's like, oh, well, they reached their arm out, got one hand on your hip, and then you're dropping because of that. You can't be that. You watch Elias Pearl's film, and you're going to watch him run through arm tackles. You're going to watch him get wrapped up and still keep going until they fall off of him. I think that ability is huge and very impressive to me. I like how Elias Pearl tracks the ball in the air. That's the thing that I spoke about with Justin Williams, and I think that's the thing Justin Williams is really good. And frankly, Elias Pearl is I think, a really good a really good receiver prospect. Again, I think for college, he's a great athlete. I think on film, he's got that contact balance. I think he's got ball tracking skills. I think he's a pretty decent route runner. I think he's got a better release package than just pure route running ability. But even then, like for a high school player, I like the route running. Like Elias Pearl, I think is a great recruit right now. I think, yeah, sure, 4-star or whatever. I think ESPN is wrong by saying that there's 177 players better than him. I'll say that, but I think he's a great receiver. I think him with Davin Davidson, someone that'll get the ball to him vertically, assuming that I'm always going to just make the assumption that the quarterback in the class is the guy that they're pitching to say, hey, that's going to be your quarterback. I get why you'd go, well, that's a fun quarterback to have throwing the football to me, right? And so Elias Pearl probably loves having that, but I think skill set wise, I could view him as a kick return, punt returner as well, which he did do in high school. I think the first play of his, I might be actually the first play of his film might actually be a punt return, or maybe second play, something like that, is return ability. And so I think that there's a reason that you put a guy like that there, right? Again, he is someone that contact balance, change of direction is fun. Like, he's a good athlete. He's not just someone that tested well. He's a good athlete when you watch him play. The Florida Gators, that's what they're looking for, a receiver. Going, hey, get me athletes. Let me get someone that can just get him the football in space and let him make plays. That's what Elias Pearl does. That's what this 2027 recruiting class is adding at receiver, and Elias Pearl fits that to an absolute T.
That's all for today's Big Six in 60. If you follow basketball, football, or college sports, the Big 3 in 30 has a half hour on the biggest news in the NFL, the NBA, and on campus, going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 in 30 NBA, the Big 3 in 30 NFL, or the Big 3 in 30 college, wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big Six in 60.